Hi, today I'll be stringing a racket with natural gut from start to finish. All right, let's go inside. All right, first we're gonna start off with preparation. I went ahead and cleaned the frame. Next I wanna make sure I check the grommets for any damage. And typically you're gonna be checking the last couple of mains where the strings go up or down, and the first few crosses. Anywhere where there's a angle where the string is rubbing against the frame. This is actually a pretty new frame. It was previously strung with a hybrid natural gut in the mains and ALU rough on the crosses. And but it was for a woman that was actually experiencing some hand pain. She was told that that was a good string setup. It was strung at a low tension, but I recommended that she go with all natural gut, and that way she'll get the benefit of getting the most out of her strings and protecting her hand. All right, so I went ahead and checked it. It's all good. The next thing I did is I cleaned my clamps. I just want to make sure that my clamps are going to be holding, and I can actually adjust my clamps looser or less pressure, so that yeah, it's not going to pinch or crush the string as much. So you want to just try and do that. So I went ahead and adjusted that. Next, I'm gonna go ahead and cut the strings. I'm using a Babolat VS Feel 17 gauge. And when you cut it, you just want to make sure that you kind of let it relax, or it's been yeah, you just want to get it out there. Since I am going to be stringing this two-piece, I'm just going to go ahead and cut this at 20 feet. And on my machine, you can't see it, but I actually have a mark at 1 foot and 2 foot and 3 foot. So I actually use my machine to measure it. So I don't do the arm length thing. I just go with an actual measurement that's on my machine. So I'm going to go ahead and measure 20 feet. That's 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, and that's 20. I normally string around the world actually for this kind of racket, and I did come up with I do have my own around the world pattern, and it's on the IART website. So if you're a premium member, go ahead and search around the world with a twist. And yeah, I have some things that I do a little bit differently that I haven't seen anybody else do. So yeah, check it out. All right, so I'm gonna be stringing this at 48. I have it set at 10% pre-stretch and also at the low pulling speed. All right, so I have the first piece, and oh, as I was measuring it, I was actually feeling it with my finger to kind of inspect it at the same time, making sure that there's no rough parts of the string or any kind of blemish. So yeah, I got a little ahead of myself there. All right, so I do want to make sure that both ends has angle tips, so I cut that off there. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and start the mains. And in one of my other videos, I always use the offset tube. So I'm gonna go ahead and install it here. And I do use the Yusuke method when I start the first pull on the main. All right, so natural gut, you just want to make sure that you're not going to kink it. So you just have to be really careful when you're pulling it through, and you never want to twist it. So just got to make sure you take care of that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pull this first one here. Now you do have to wait till it does pull it the second time before you clamp off. So always make sure that you wait for that. All right, so I like to do 2 at a time, so I'm gonna go ahead and do 2 on this side. The good thing about doing a 2-piece, you don't have to work with a lot of string. If you do 1 piece like the Around the World, you always have that long side that you have to deal with. So yeah, having a 2-piece does simplify that. All right, so I'm on the other side, working on the first main on this side. I'm actually gonna do 4 mains because I did 2 on the first side. This is also my second. This is my second one right here, but I like to go 2 more. So to me, I feel like it evens it out by just kind of alternating the side I overlap or yeah, get my strings on each side. So I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and do 4. All right, so that's the 4th one right there. And come back to the original side. Yeah, usually when I string natural gut, it's mostly in a hybrid these days. So I always like stringing all natural gut. It kind of brings back memories when, you know, natural gut was popular when it was strung by itself. But all right, so I'm gonna go ahead and that's the 4th main on this side, but I am gonna do 2 more, so I'll go ahead and proceed with that. So most of the main installation is pretty straightforward. You just got to make sure that you're not going to kink the string, and that your clamps are not damaging or crushing the string. Okay, that's number 6 on that side, so I'll come back here and so this is, I believe, a 16-19 pattern, so I'm gonna go ahead and just finish off this side because yeah, I'll end up with 8 on this side, which is 2 over the other side. I'm going to use the knot function on this last main coming down. Always like to hold in the grommet even though this is previously strung, just to make sure that it's not going to pop out. All right, so I'm going to just tie off here, and I'm kind of old school. I still like using the double half hitch knot. So there's times that I use the pro knot if there's not that much space, if another string is going across and it might be touching and there's not much space. So yeah, I'll vary the knots depending on the situation, but in most cases I use the double half hitch knot. All right, so I can come back to this side and finish off the last 2 mains. tie off here. All right, so we're done with the mains. Okay, so we're gonna start the installation of the crosses. And the other piece here. One of my other videos, I mentioned how it's always important, I think, to try and reduce the friction, especially at the top where this last main, and if there's a hole, well, maybe you can see it better here, but where this last main comes up, and then there's a hole that's right here, which happens to be the 1, 2, 3rd cross. And typically that area, when you're pulling the cross through, will build up a lot of tension, friction, and cause notching. I mean, you are gonna pull it slow, so that'll reduce that, but I like to just get that 3rd cross out of the way. So I'm actually in this frame, I'm gonna actually start from the 3rd, then weed the 2nd, then to the 1st. So on some frames, you have to make sure, you have to pay attention which side is the tie off. On this clash, it doesn't matter. So I'm gonna go ahead and start on this side. I always like to make my tie off on the right hand corner if I can, if I have a choice. If not, if it's a certain side, then I'll just go with what that side calls for. So I'm gonna go ahead and weave this third cross, and it's just gonna so the other thing too is I'm only gonna weave about probably about 3 feet of string to do the first 3 crosses, and I'm not pulling the entire length of the other side through these first 3 crosses. All right, so that's the 3rd cross I just weaved. I'm gonna come back to the 2nd cross here. Of course, these are not gonna be tensioned yet. I'm gonna go ahead and reach the first one, and then I can start pulling. And now we're over here to the first one. All right, and then I'm just gonna use the offset tube. So I just have to make sure I have enough string to reach the tension head. And I'm not gonna worry about using the Diablo on this pull, so I'm just gonna go straight in. Okay, so I got the offset tube here and set it up there. All right, I'm gonna pull tension on this first string. I will have to come back and retension this string later. And but for now, I'm just gonna go ahead and pull this. I'm just pulling at the 48 pounds. And I'm just gonna, all right, so now we're on the 2nd cross. And again, I'm just pulling about a foot of string through this one area. And that's the 2nd cross right there. I'm doing the one ahead technique now. So I have my loop over here. All right, and then now we're on the 3rd cross. All right, so this is the area right here and right here, these 2 corners, that you just really want to make sure that you're going slowly when you're pulling it. If you're working with polyester, especially if it's shaped, yeah, that's the areas that you want to just make sure that you really watch for. And in some cases, what you could do is, if there's like something like tour bite or something that really grabs, you can actually do a half diagonal pull where you would create a loop in the middle like that, and then you do a half diagonal pull where you just pull one side first, and then you can pull the other side through. That helps reduce the tension in those areas too. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and weave this next cross. Forgot to cut the tip on this. So now I'm on the 4th cross right here. And I'm holding the end, so that's gonna help me find that tip when I have to weave the next cross. Okay, so I'm gonna tension this 3rd cross right here. And I'm gonna weave the 5th one, but then I'm gonna tension that 1st cross because now my clamp it'll be free for me to move it there. So I'm just gonna leave it like that for now. I'm gonna use the knot function there. I'm gonna pull this string. All right, so now we can tie this off and get this, I took off the offset tube. Now sometimes if you're handling the gut and for some reason, you know, the fibers start unraveling, one thing that you could do is that when you're pulling the knot, well, before you actually pull the knot, you can actually hold on to it, rotate your pliers or starting clamp, depending on what you use, and then pull it. So that kind of keeps the fibers together. And then you can also, okay, I'll show you after I do this next cross. I have to release that clamp so I can show you. All right, so this is the 4th cross here. All right, so what I'm gonna do is show you. So if your natural gut is starting to look like it's unwinding, what you could do is after you do that thing where you turn the plier or starting clamp, whatever you're using to pull the knot, after you cut it, you can get either super glue or crazy glue, and then you can put one drop, but you really have to make sure that that one drop is only one drop, because if you get it all over the racket or inside the knot, yeah, it could get pretty messy. So what I would do is, let me grab it. All right, I should have had that prepared actually, but I just thought of it. So I just want to make sure, I haven't used this in a while and I just want to see how this thing is gonna come out of here. All right, so I'll bring this up closer. So you can see that if I press the tube, you can see that drop coming out. So that came out pretty nicely, but you want to just make sure that that drop, if you just touch the top of the string, it'll just go right onto that top part of the knot tail. So not that I need it on this, but I'll go ahead and show it to you so you can see what I mean. So now that I know how the glue is gonna come out, I'm gonna go ahead and gently just bring it out of that tip and just kind of touch the knot tail just so that it goes right in there. So right now the glue is only on that knot tail. It's not in the knot, it's not in the grommet or on the frame. So that's one way. If you notice that your gut is unwinding on you. All right, so we're coming back here, and so the rest is pretty straightforward. I mean, I'm just gonna weave down to the end, but you wanna always hold the cross string as you're pulling for more accurate tension. And you're always watching for the string not to kink or twist on you. Because, yeah, it's on the crosses that you're gonna experience more of that possibly happening. So, you know, you just gotta go a little bit slower and just really make sure that you're watching for that. Now this racket's not too bad. I mean, it's a 16-19, so it's not like a dense string pattern, but if you're doing like a 18-20, yeah, by the time you get to the bottom crosses, yeah, the gut can start to get a little bit soft if you're not careful with it. And yeah, you want to try and keep it as clear as possible, all the way down to the end. You always have to watch to make sure that if you're using the pre-stretch function, that you're actually waiting for that second pull to be completely finished. So as you know, there's different techniques in weaving. I tend to prefer pulling it to me with a loop. And that's the way I teach stringers how to teach. To me, it's easier. That's just my preference. I think it's easier to learn actually because it's easier to hold on to a loop versus the tip, at least for me. So what I mean by that is when you bring the string in, I mean, at least you have something to kind of hold on to, like right here. Whereas the tip, yeah, I can't string very well with just the tip, but to me, to hold the tip of the string, you really gotta, I'm sure if I practice, I could do it, but I always thought that the loop was is easier to weave as a beginner and even as a advanced stringer, I guess. Yeah, back in the day when gut strings were uncoated, we actually had to use paraffin wax. After you install the mains, we would actually wax the strings to make it so that the strings could slide. Because, yeah, there was a lot of friction with uncoated gut. And you really had to be careful with that kind of gut because it would tend to unravel if you're not really careful. Okay, we're getting down towards the end, and one thing I forgot to mention when I was after I released the tension on the string, I always release the base first before the top clamp, because on the mains there's a chance that the string might draw back, So you always go base first. I think it's better to go base first and then string clamp second. On the crosses, however, I actually do it the opposite, because for me, I think the crosses, you don't see that much, and I don't think there's the risk of the clamps damaging the string as much, because the tension is actually held in by the mains. So I'll open up the clamp on the top, drop it down, especially if you have the gravity activated clamps. Otherwise they wouldn't have designed it that way. So for me, I always go with the top and then the bottom second for the crosses. So as long as you're consistent and you're always doing it one way, that's the main thing. So yeah, you want to pay attention to that and just make sure that you're keeping your technique consistent with the releasing of the clamps. All right, I'm down to the last 3 crosses, and this is a fairly easy frame to string. But let's say if this third cross was getting really tough to weave, like on an 1820, you can actually string half of the string through, and then you can do this thing called a half diagonal pull, where you weave half and then you kind of continue the other side, but leaving a loop over here in the middle. And then what's going to happen is you're going to actually pull one side using that loop. Oh, forgot, I have to tension the string first. So all right, so now you're going to pull this through, but it does reduce the friction and it's a lot easier. And you'll notice that with natural gut, there's less chances of the gut unwinding. So yeah, you want to just pull that through like that, and then you can pull the other half, but you want to make sure it's coming at an angle, so it's diagonal. So that's why it's called a half diagonal pull. The other thing too is that when you're pulling it through, the gut will tend to come apart if you turn it the wrong way. So knowing that the gut is, you want to make sure that I'm actually pulling it and turning it a little bit, like rotating it, just to make sure that the gut stays twisted the way it should. Okay, and you just got to watch out when you're right here. Just make sure that, oh, you don't want that to happen. All right, that you're gonna pull it and it's right there. All right, so down to the last 2. Okay, I'm not going to use the Diablo on this last couple strings. Yeah, so this would be another situation sometimes. If right now this string that I'm pulling through is actually, there's a string blocking the hole. So sometimes when it's tight, when you're pulling a string like this side can start to twist the natural gut. So again, if that happens, then I would just go half and half. I mean, do the half diagonal pull. This one's not doing that, so I'm not gonna do it, but I'll do it on the last string, because that's again another time that, or situation where that could happen. All right, so I have enough string length to actually go still one ahead. Sometimes if you don't have enough, you're gonna just have to pull this and then string the last one without the one ahead. So whenever you can, you should try and use that one ahead, just to make it easier to weave and, you know, less friction pulling it through. All right, so this one is actually blocked right here too. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually tension this string already. I'll go ahead and pull that. All right. Because I'm using the half diagonal pull on this one, it doesn't really matter too much that I'm not doing the one ahead. So I have a pretty tight space here, so what I'm gonna do is just weave it halfway. Again, I'm pulling it at an angle diagonally. You know, I could either leave the loop right here, or I could just go ahead and pull the whole thing through. So I'll go ahead and do it that way this time. And then what you have to do is go ahead and weave the other half. Just make sure that when you start weaving it from the middle that you are doing it either over or under appropriately. So yeah, that one's over, so I'm gonna go under here. And you wanna just make sure that on the outside it matches. All right, so again, this is critical right here. Sometimes this loop can twist on you, so you kind of just want to make sure that you're always kind of turning the gut in the direction that, you know, it's supposed to go without unraveling. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and use the knot feature right there. Going to tie off right here. Yeah, sometimes when you get to this last cross, the string can be soft because of the amount of handling it went through, weaving it and pulling it through. So I'll go ahead and use the crazy glue again just to demonstrate how that should be done. So I went ahead and pulled made my final pull on the knot. And what I'm gonna do is go ahead and turn the pliers around to kind of give it that extra twist. I'll go ahead and release the clamp. All right. Then you're gonna go ahead and cut your knot tail and all right. So again, you gotta be really careful, and you don't want to squeeze the tube too tight, too hard. So I'm gonna do it very, very gently and just make sure I can see that drop coming out of the tube, and then just using that, running it down the knot tail. So that'll make sure that the end doesn't unravel after use. So that helps. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of do the final straightening. Normally the mains will tend to kind of bow outward, so you wanna, inward, so you wanna just kind of pull it back out a little bit. It's always easier to straighten the strings while it's still in the machine. All right, and then the crosses, I use a straightening all, but really if you were pulling your strings by tensioning your strings and holding it, there really shouldn't be too much straightening of the cross strings. So yeah, I might see a couple that might just be out of place, but yeah, maybe just this one right here. But other than that, it looks pretty good. So I'm gonna go ahead and take that off. Oh, I did want to show you something about the grip. You know, this, I don't know if you can see that grip, but something like this, I did a video about my pet peeves. So I don't know if you can identify what I have an issue about this, but I'm gonna go ahead and fix this over grip. It was nicely wrapped though. The overlaps was nice and even, but it's just, yeah. All right, I did want to show you the final product. So I'll bring it up here, and I don't know if you can see the entire string bed, but I'll bring it even closer. So really the goal is to get your strings to be clear and not leave any teeth mark in it or any grooves where the teeth were clamping down onto the string. Now, one of the things that was key in this, making sure that you accomplish that, was making sure your clamps are clean. And I did adjust my clamps looser so that I didn't have to press down on the string, or the clamps didn't have to press down on the string. I was stringing at 48, so I could drop my clamp to a looser setting, but if you're stringing at a high tension, I might have just left the clamps the way it is because it might not have held. So you can use your judgment on that. The mains were pretty straightforward, but when I got to the crosses, there were three things that I mentioned that you want to pay attention to. One was when you start the crosses, I started from that third cross to eliminate the amount of string that was passing through the first three crosses. And if you haven't seen my video, Install Crosses Faster and Reduce Friction, I talk about that. So I'll leave the link below. The second thing that I did was when we got down into a tight area where, especially towards the end, where the string feels like it's starting to twist. And you'll find that it happens a lot when you have a blocked hole from the main. And then, so when you're pulling across through it, it's a tight fit, and it causes the string to kind of twist. So if that happens, you can use the half diagonal pull by weaving half of it through, leaving a loop in the middle, and then weaving the other half, and then pulling that half through and then pulling the other half through. But if it's really twisting on you, if you're getting to that point, really what you should do is just weave half of it and just pull it through, and then weave the other half and then pull it through, because then that way you can really eliminate the string from twisting more so than having that loop in the middle. All right, and the third thing that I did was I added that crazy glue. Again, if you're handling the gut to a point where the knot end is starting to look like it's gonna unravel, make sure you rotate your starting clamp or pliers before you cut it. And then I'll just show you. I'm not gonna put another drop on here, but yeah, so basically what I did was I squeezed the tube to the point where there was a drop, coming out of the tip. And then I was just using the tip kind of like a paintbrush, and I was just trying to go right up the knot tail. So the goal was to just get it on that knot tail and not into the knot itself. So yeah, that helps too. And oh, and I did want to show you the grip, if you can tell what I did to it. So that's the grip. All right, so I hope that these tips helped. Thanks for watching, happy stringing, and let your strings play.